Welcome back to Hollow Street, where every shadow tells a story, and some are best left unheard. Tonight, we're walking down Elmwood Lane, a quiet, unassuming street just like any other. At least it was until last Tuesday. That's when the nights in Elmwood started to change. It began subtly, a faint sound carried on the midnight breeze. A sound that, once heard, could not be ignored. It was the sound of a child crying. Margaret Abernathy was the first to report it. She was up late, knitting by her window, when she heard a soft sobbing from the street below. Thinking a child was lost, she put on her coat and stepped outside. The sound seemed to be coming from just beyond the old oak tree at the end of her driveway. But as she took a few steps toward it, the crying seemed to move, now sounding like it was coming from her neighbor's yard across the street. Confused, she walked to the edge of her property, and again, the sound shifted, now seeming to emanate from further down the block. Every time she got closer, the crying moved, always staying just out of reach. After 20 minutes of this strange, heartbreaking chase, Margaret gave up, a cold unease settling over her. The next night, her neighbor, Mr. Henderson, heard it too. He was taking out his trash when the mournful cries caught his ear. A practical man, he grabbed a flashlight and went to investigate. He followed the sound down Elmwood Lane, his beam cutting through the darkness. It seemed to be coming from behind a row of hedges, but as he approached, the sound receded, echoing from the direction of the community park. He walked toward the park, and the crying shifted again, now sounding like it was back near his own house. Like Margaret, he was chasing a phantom, an echo that danced just ahead of him. He described it as a game of auditory cat and mouse, but one where he felt like the mouse being led on an invisible string. By the end of the week, almost everyone on Elmwood Lane had experienced it. The phenomenon was nicknamed the echoing child. It was always the same, the sound of a young child, distressed and alone, crying in the dark. It would lure people out of their homes, drawing them into the night with a primal urge to help. Yet, no one could ever find the source. The crying was always 5 steps ahead, a perpetual, frustrating distance away. The local Facebook group buzzed with theories. Was it a prank? A recording played on a moving speaker? Or was it something else? Something not of this world? Teenagers, braver and more foolish than their parents, tried to catch it. A group of 4, led by a boy named Leo, decided they would corner the sound. They coordinated with walkie-talkies, positioning themselves at different ends of the street. At 1:15 a.m., the crying started, seemingly from the center of their trap. As they all moved in, flashlights converging, the sound did something different. It didn't just move away. It splintered. Suddenly, it was coming from all 4 directions at once, surrounding them. The single sob became a chorus of phantom children, their cries overlapping, creating a disorienting wall of sound. The teenagers panicked and fled back to their homes, thoroughly terrified. The echoing child, it seemed, didn't like being hunted. The story starts to take a darker turn when we look into the history of Elmwood Lane. Before it was a neat suburban street, the area was mostly farmland. And in the 1920s, a small farmhouse stood right where the community park is now located. The family that lived there, the Caldwells, had a young son named Thomas. One winter's night, Thomas, who was prone to sleepwalking, wandered out of the house and into a blizzard. His parents searched for him, calling his name, but the howling wind drowned out their voices. They found his small body the next morning, not far from their front door. He had frozen to death, lost and alone in the dark. Is it possible that the crying heard on Elmwood Lane is the lingering echo of poor Thomas Caldwell? A spectral replay of his final, lonely moments? Some residents think so. They say the crying is loudest on nights when the air is particularly cold, as if the chill itself carries his sorrow. They've stopped trying to find the source. Instead, when they hear it, they simply whisper a quiet prayer for the lost boy, hoping to offer some comfort to a spirit that has been wandering for a century. But there's another, more chilling theory. An old legend from the region talks about a creature known as a grief eater. This entity mimics the sounds of distress, particularly the cries of a child, to lure compassionate souls out into the open. It doesn't feed on flesh, but on emotion. It draws people into a cycle of hope and frustration, hope that they can help, and frustration that they can't. The creature is said to savor the feelings of helplessness and lingering sadness that its victims feel after their fruitless search. According to this legend, the grief eater gets stronger with every person it lures into its game. This theory gained traction after an incident involving a newcomer to the street, Sarah Jenkins. Unaware of the local lore, she heard the crying and, being a pediatric nurse, was determined to find the child. She spent over an hour chasing the sound, growing more and more frantic. Her husband eventually found her collapsed in the middle of the street, weeping uncontrollably. She told him she could feel the child's despair, but every step she took, it felt like the sadness was being pulled from her own heart, leaving her empty and exhausted. She described it as an emotional drain, a psychic vampirism. For days afterward, she was listless, unable to feel much of anything at all. So what is haunting Elmwood Lane? Is it the tragic ghost of a boy lost to the cold, forever replaying his final moments? Or is it something more ancient and predatory, a being that feeds on the very best of human nature, our empathy? The residents no longer know what to believe. The sound of a child crying at night, once a signal for immediate action, has now become a sound of dread. It's a call they know they can't answer, a puzzle they can't solve. They simply lock their doors, draw their curtains, and try to ignore the heartbreaking echo that drifts through the darkness, always just 5 steps away. It serves as a constant chilling reminder that on Hollow Street, even the act of compassion can lead you into a trap from which there is no escape. What would you do if you heard the echoing child? Would you go outside? Thanks for joining us in the shadows of Hollow Street. If you have a story that belongs here, let us know. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember to check your locks. You never know what might be calling to you from the dark.